him the whole time. Okay, so first off, the food Zeke eats goes into his oral cavity. And so open your mouth, Zeke. So we see Zeke has incisors in the front. He has canines, a little pointy right next to his incisors. And then he has premolars and molars in the back. Okay? So when I feed him his candy bar that he gets for doing this, he'll first bite off with the incisors, and then he'll move it to the back and chew it with the molars eventually. And once it forms sort of a liquid mixture in his mouth with all the saliva from his sublingual glands are going to be under here. Sublingual will be under his tongue. Submandibular will be back further next to his mandible. And then he's got parotid salivary glands on the side here. And once he's done all that, you're doing great. Once he's done all that, he'll move the food back to his pharynx, and he'll swallow, and the food will go past the epiglottis. The epiglottis will fold down and cover his trachea, and the food will go down into his esophagus, and it'll travel down his esophagus. So that's where we're going to start. So, his esophagus, let's see. His esophagus comes down right here. And probably right around here, his esophagus meets his stomach. And so what's the top of the stomach called? Anybody remember?
Fundus.
The fundus. So there's the fundus. And then the stomach comes around this way. And when his stomach is empty, it probably takes up about this much space. When he eats a lot, it fills up, and you can actually see a little bump right there. The fundus is the top of the stomach. What do you call the little folds in the stomach?
Stomach folds.
Stomach folds. Starts with an R. Rugae. Okay, and so the rugae are there to increase surface area and to allow the stomach to stretch. And on the surface of rugae, you see all these little dots. And if you go inside one of those, it's called a gastric pit. There's two types of cells. There's chief cells, I wrote on the board. Chief cells that secrete pepsin, because it's always hard to remember which one secretes which. So chief cells secrete pepsin, and parietal cells secrete hydrochloric acid. There's also cells secreting mucus. And so it begins to form this chyme in here. There's a little sphincter right there called the pyloric sphincter, or sorry, not the pyloric, the esophageal sphincter that lets the food in. If somebody has gastric reflux, the sphincter doesn't close and the acid goes back up. And then we have the pyloric sphincter right here, and that is going to stay closed until the chyme is nice. The bolus becomes chyme and it becomes a nice liquid. And then we're going to hit the small intestine. So I'm going to use a different color now. We will do orange for the small intestine. And so, what's the first part of the small intestine called?
The duodenum.
Yeah, the duodenum or the duodenum. And so then it takes a 180 right after the pyloric sphincter. And this is where all the secretion is going to happen. And so there's something called the common bile duct that comes down from the liver and comes from the pancreas. And the gallbladder would be up here. I'm not going to draw the liver till the very end because the liver covers everything. But the liver secretes bile out of the gallbladder, and this pancreas secretes pancreatic juice. I'm going to draw his pancreas, nice bright pink color. So there's his pancreas. And they come together and form what's called the hepatopancreatic ampulla. But you don't need to know that word. But they come together, and then right there they secrete into the duodenum. Now, do you guys remember, what are the enzymes that are secreted? We talked about this yesterday. Pepsin is secreted in the stomach, though. And then there's 4 enzymes that come in the pancreatic juice.
Protease.
Protease, amylase.
Nuclease.
Nucleases, and for fat?
Lipase.
Okay, and so those all come out of the pancreas. The bile contains what are called bile salts that emulsify the fat and make it so that it'll float around in the blood. And those are all secreted by the accessory organs of the liver and the gallbladder and the pancreas. And then we hit the jejunum. And so the jejunum kind of takes off this way and goes back and forth like this. And I probably went a little too far over with it. And it's a big, mess. But there's the jejunum over there. And then eventually it becomes the ileum over here. Okay, And then we have a point where the ileum then reaches the colon. What is the... so we have all this secretion in the duodenum. What's the purpose of the jejunum and the ileum? So now they're going to start actually absorbing everything. Most of the absorption happens in the jejunum, which I think is about 8 feet. And then the ileum, there's going to be less absorption of the vitamins and other things. Okay. For the colon, I'll use blue. And so we hit the cecum over here. Starting to feel like I'm a little out of place. And coming off the cecum is his appendix down here. Sometimes people have pain like right below the belly button or even on the other side, but the appendix is over here. And so when they have appendicitis, any kind of pain in here, I think, is just go to the doctor and ask them. Okay, so the cecum, the appendix, and then what do we call it as it goes up? Ascending colon. Okay. And then the liver, you'll see, is over here. And so what do you call the flexure where there's the liver? Remember the word for liver? Hepatic. Yeah, like hepatitis. So the hepatic flexure goes across here. So this is the hepatic flexure. And then going across, this is called the transverse colon. And then over here, you're next to the spleen. And so what's it called? You have the splenic flexure, and it's going to go down. Okay. And then, what do you call it when it's going down?
The
Descending colon. And then it goes across. What's that called?
Sigmoid.
Sigmoid colon. And we're going to have to stop there. But it goes down into the rectum and then the anus. Okay. The word for pooping in science is defecate. And so and the word for poop is stool. So you're going to defecate the stool as the rectum pushes and the anus opens up and lets the poop out, the stool out. Okay. Now, like I said, the liver, if you cut somebody open, the most apparent thing is there's this huge liver. So the liver kind of is over everything else. And so I'm just going to draw a very inaccurate liver over here. And there's a big lobe, and it might be a little higher than this actually. But the liver just kind of covers up everything. So when we cut open fetal pigs next week, you're going to be like, whoa, what's this giant flappy thing all over everything? And that's going to be the liver. So the liver kind of is on top of everything else usually in the abdominal cavity. Looks like that. Okay. Everybody give Zeke a hand.